No. Hi, and welcome to Ashburg. This week was a really fun week because we actually dove into some vampire books. Vampires are one of my favorite book topics. With the whole debate between vampires and werewolves, I was always team vampire. If I had to pick to be one of the two, vampire. Easy. Solve my existential dread about the afterlife by being given the gift of immortality, or turn into a big-ass dog against my will and tear up all my clothes in the process. Easy. So I picked out some vampire books and did a whole reading vlog with them. So please enjoy that, and then we'll meet back here to discuss how I think both these books went. Hello. Hey, how you doing? I'm always out of breath, man. I gotta get my cardio up. So I'm here to report that we've officially got our first pick down for our week of vampire books. And for our first book, I decided to go with Vampires of El Norte by Isabel Cañas. So I'll admit this one's a little bit out of my comfort zone because it's a mashup of historical fiction and the supernatural. The supernatural I do all day. I mean, bring on a little ghosty. Bring on a little haunted doll. That's not a problem. That's not a problem. Honestly, it's the historical fiction part that gets me. Historical fiction just really isn't generally my genre, or at least it hasn't been since the last time that I've tried it out. And since then, I've read so many books, my tastes have changed so much, I wanted to give it another chance. And at least if I'm blending it with some horror/supernatural elements, it won't be so hardcore historical fiction, maybe. And it could also just be that I'm not as into American historical fiction, but we're gonna give this a shot. So this book takes place in 1840s Mexico, following our two characters, Nena and Nestor, who are childhood friends. Nena is the daughter of this pretty big-time rancher. Her family's ranch and land, and a lot of the other land along the Texas and Mexico border is being threatened by white people. Settlers from the north are trying to come and just take away the land because you're not new here. But while the American threat is pushing in on them, they're also being targeted by some creature that comes along in the night and drains people of their blood and leaves them for dead. So our book starts 9 years ago, and I've actually just read through this scene because it was in the first 20 pages. Nestor and Nena have gone out in the middle of the night, and Nena is attacked by whatever is in the forest. Nestor believes that she's been killed, blames himself, and in his grief, he escapes from the ranch and disappears for the next 9 years. Once the threat of the northern settlers starts to pick up, Nestor's called back to defend the ranch, and he and Nena are reunited. There's a whole bunch of tension. Nena's like, you left me, you abandoned me. Nestor's like, I thought you were dead. Nena's like, you didn't want to wait 15 minutes. But they end up having to work together to protect their home from the colonizers and whatever is going bump in the night. So you see what I'm saying? It's like a mixture of historical fiction, but then you also have the whole vampire thing going on. I think it's a good blend. I think we have a pretty good shot of enjoying it. And let me read you this quote. These were the creatures of tall tales and nightmares come to life and walking in broad daylight. What do you think they're talking about there? Vampires? No. Caucasian colonizers. Before we continue, here's an update on the scarf that I'm crocheting. You didn't ask for it, but if you're gonna stay here, you're gonna look at my crafts, okay? So here's my scarf so far. Here, I'll try it on for you. So it's just long enough for a short scarf, but I want these two tails to be hanging down. I mean, it's just a plain red scarf, but I'm learning, and I think my goal is to next crochet like a little baby blanket for my dog. Why are we here? So I did go ahead and pick the second book that we're going to read for our week of vampire books, and that book is going to be A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This did come with a dust jacket that I have removed because I don't like to read books with dust jackets on. They're beautiful. Works of art, but they're paper. and they rip and they slip and slide and they make me mad. Why don't they just print the pretty design straight onto the cover? Why do we even have to do a dust jacket? For the dust? A Dowry of Blood. This one is about one of Dracula's brides, Constanta. She goes through and tells the story of how she and Dracula came to be, how they came to wed. It starts with her falling in love with this very enigmatic, mysterious figure who's granted her this practically limitless power. And most importantly, how over time she comes to see Dracula no longer as her lover and her savior and her lord and her king. She starts to recognize how manipulative and controlling and oppressive Dracula is. And the longer she and the other brides remain loyal to him, the more that she sees that he's really not who she thought he was. He's a monster, and it talks about what happens as a result of that realization, which yum, 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 yum. I love, love, love the idea of this plot. I just scratched the surface. I only got 30 pages in, but oh yeah. Already the writing is just so lush and gorgeous. We're moving pretty quickly, but I'm just feeling the connection that she had to him and how she was just so in awe of him. I just love the concept, and I'm hoping that the execution is going to also live up to those standards. Before I started reading this, every time I thought about Dracula's brides, I thought of the movie Van Helsing. It's an older movie with Hugh Jackman. He plays Van Helsing, who hunts monsters on behalf of the church. And there's Frankenstein, and there's werewolves, and there's the whole shebang. But they have Dracula, which, whatever, they have as brides. And I would never want to be married to that Dracula. There is a form of Dracula I'm sure that I would fall madly in love with because I'm stupid. But the brides had some outfits, and I would have loved to be in those outfits. And they were so beautiful, but terrifying. Loved it. If you want a Halloween movie recommendation, I definitely recommend that. It's camp, but as long as you don't mind that and you're just here for a silly, goofy time, that's a good one. We've made some progress on our vampire books, so now it's time for a little reading update. Let's start with Vampires of El Norte. For this one, I've passed the 100-page mark. At this stage, I'd say that I'm mildly interested. There are parts of this that I really adore, and then there are parts of this that I'm just not quite sold on yet. What I do admire about this book is that Cañas's love for Mexico just bleeds through every single page. She really tries to just squeeze in as many details about Nena's life, her ranch, Mexico in general, the desert, the landscape, the food, everything. And when I pick this up, I do feel like I'm instantly transported. I can feel the sun on my skin. I can taste the wind. I can smell the food. Mexican cuisine already? Yeah. So when we get descriptions on the smell of meat or some cooked peppers, you best believe I have my nose kind of in the book like, wait, can I get a plate? But that is the part of the story that I admire so far. Immersion, 10 out of 10. Where I think I'm not convinced quite yet. I don't feel like I'm invested in Nestor and Nena just yet. We've built up a lot of backstory. We've set up large chunks of the plot, but I haven't gotten enough of them as a couple. And really at this stage, they've barely reunited. Like Nestor's back at the ranch and they're preparing to go fight the colonizers, but they haven't really had too much one-on-one time yet. So I think I need more time for them to build as a couple before I really feel that like juicy romantic tension that I'm looking for. I mean, I imagine that these next couple 100 pages will be about developing that exact same thing. Just as of right now, I'm only mildly interested in what's going on. That's a lot of progress for me in historical fiction, though. So cheers to Cañas. And then we have A Dowry of Blood. This one. A Dowry of Blood is so addictive. We're moving at such a brisk pace, obviously because Constanta has like hundreds of years to cover in her and Dracula's life together. But I think the quicker pace fits the narrative so well. I despise Dracula. If I catch you, Ricky, looking out the many ways that he uses to cow her, manipulate her, just sprinkle these little crumbs of affection every time he can feel her pulling away just to get her back. There are times when Constanta's like, I can't believe I fell for it. And I'm like, girl, he killed you. He killed you to bring you back and have sex with your corpse. I don't think you can be blamed. But it has been a fascinating journey just seeing how the relationship has developed and evolved, and seeing them live through all of these like massive world events. I will say that I'm also worried that the other brides have not been brought up yet. So he's literally going to do all of this stuff and then bring other bitches home. That's crazy. Hi, I'm hiding from my laundry. Let's do some reading updates. Vampires of El Norte. I'm at about the 200 page mark, and we haven't really made too much progress in the vampire plot. It's been a slow and steady build to the vampires, which I believe are going to take up the largest chunk of the end of the book. A lot of it so far has been focused on Nestor and Nena's reunion, but they haven't really been alone enough for them to have any of the conversations that they need to have. We've also been preparing for the big battle against the American colonizers, and we actually got a piece of the battle, which was horrific. I can't believe that they just have the Mexicans in their ancestral home, their home, where generations of their families have lived, where they've settled, where they've built a whole life, community, culture, and they think that they're just going to cross the border and be like, mine. What is that? What is that? And I don't believe that that threat is really over yet, so I'm worried about what that means for the rest of the book. There's also been another subplot that we've been exploring a little bit with Nena and her father. This is the 1840s, and at this time, men would practically sell their daughter to another family's son for power, for swords, for cattle, for a handful of peanuts if they wanted to. And Nena has spent a large part of the book trying to prove to her father that she's useful at the ranch and shouldn't be sent to live as a wife to some other rancher's son. She's been practicing her healing. That's what she wants to do. That's what she's pursuing. And that's another large part of her personality. It's really hard to gauge how I feel about this book because the vampires haven't really been explored as deeply as I assume they're going to be. Because I am here for primarily the supernatural element, like I'm really hoping that's going to beef up. Kanyes has just really crafted a slow burn of a romance. And I feel like I have to see how this all comes together before I can say whether or not it's worth it. That's Vampires of El Norte. A Dowry of Blood. We have been introduced to the first of the additional brides, side chicks. And it has been really tough, but also fascinating seeing what the addition of a new bride does to Constanta. She, of course, toggles through so many emotions. She's unsure how she ultimately feels about having to share Dracula with someone else full time. Hearing Constanta talk about having to share Dracula is like talking to that one person who keeps trying to convince you that they're really happy being in an open relationship. Not that it can't be done, but this person definitely doesn't want it. And you're just like, wow, that's so interesting. Polygamy might actually be the new wave. You seem so happy. Wait, why are you crying? But this is what Dracula does. He finds new and exciting ways to torture Constanta for the great crime of being married to him after he killed her. But as the book continues, Dracula just becomes more and more abusive, and we come to fear him with every turn of the page. Still so devastating. Still so rich, still so gorgeous. I am really enjoying it, even if I do want to rub garlic bulbs in Dracula's beady little eyes. You know what? Let's finish up Vampires of El Norte. 80 pages left. We still have the entire third act to go. But right now, my impression is that this is primarily a love story with some vampiric elements. The vampires matter, but we have spent most of these 280 pages that I've read so far with a focus on Nestor and Nena's relationship. Back when Nestor and Nena were barely getting any FaceTime alone together, That really wasn't selling it for me. But now that we've gotten so many pages of them getting to interact with each other, I don't know. Kanyas is kind of pulling something off. I have found myself in a position where I'm excited to see what happens with the vampire part, but I'm like equally, if not more excited to see what happens with Nestor and Nena, which is not like me at all. Usually romance is found dead in a ditch with me. But I think Kanyas has just made such a deeply romantic love affair, and the energy between them is just so charged up. And when the tension between them is building and building and we get interrupted with a vampire attack, I'm really like, not now. We're trying to do something. But I am liking it. And I'm excited to see this big confrontation with the vampires. So let's finish this up. Dang! After everything that happened, after all the turmoil, Nena's family catches her dirty and wearing pants. And they're basically like, she must be burned at the stake. There's nothing we can do about it. And they're strict. Nestor. No. No, that was not the way to do this. I'm too scared to turn the page. My eyes are watering. That was hard to read. I kind of wanted to cry. Anyway, though, y'all are wasting a lot of time when these vampires are coming. I just don't know if we have time for this. I don't know if we have time for this. I feel like there are bigger problems at play. The vampire apocalypse is about to descend, and they're like, I can't believe Nena was wearing pants. Nena is so sweet because she's a healer. She doesn't want to hurt anyone. But I'm like, girl, the time for mercy has passed. We gonna shoot first, and then we're gonna ask for forgiveness later. I finished. I need more time to think about it, but I feel content, but not blown away. But I need more time to think. Let's finish Dowry of Blood. So we are finally ready to finish A Dowry of Blood. Dracula's tyranny has reached new heights. He has pushed his brides to the absolute limit. And now with 70 pages left, we are hurtling towards the end. This book so far has just been everything that I wanted it to be. When you're talking about immortal love between vampires, you want the language to be rich and lush and exquisite. You want this to ooze emotion. And I think Gibson has just done a fantastic job of giving all of that to us. If we look right, this is not about you. The first page of part 1. Wait, do you remember when we were in elementary school and your teacher would read you a book and she'd hold it open so the whole class could see? So much time has passed and it won't stop passing. Focus. The first page of part 1 has this quote that's also printed on the front cover of the book. I never dreamed it would end like this, my lord. Your blood splashing hot flecks onto my nightgown and pouring in rivulets onto our bedchamber floor. But creatures like us live a long time. There is no horror left in this world that can surprise me. Eventually, even your death becomes its own inevitability. They're about to stomp out Dracula. And I'm gonna put in a little foot to help. Let's go, girls. S.T. Gibson's writing in this is just phenomenal. It's over the top, it's dramatic, but so is Vampiric Love. Reading about how Constanta felt about Dracula is like reading something holy. I just want to take a bath in her words. Ooh, I love that. I think there's a second book coming out, or it's already come out, and that is interesting. I can't believe that Constanta endured hundreds of years of this. Hundreds of years. And with that, those were our 2 vampire books. I took some time to think it over and gather my thoughts. Let's talk about Vampires of El Norte first. I do give Kanya so much respect for writing a book that bled with so much love for her mother country. The whole experience was so immersive. I also really enjoyed Nena and Nestor's relationship. I mean, even when they were pissing off each other, and me, I still was always rooting for them. It was a deeply romantic story and it was a lot of fun. However, the ending just felt so abrupt. I mean, Kanyas built up this vampire threat for 300 pages, and I feel like the final confrontation just did not do all of that work justice. I felt like it was so obvious that she got more pleasure out of the buildup than the actual ending. And I wanted a better vampire war. Also, whoever marketed this book as a horror is a scammer. Because to me, it was giving supernatural historical romance. So I feel like if you were coming into this with these big expectations of a wild-ass vampire story, you would be so disappointed. Definitely mainly romance. All in all, though, I gave it 3.75 stars. A well-written supernatural historical romance. Which actually is a mouthful to say. Maybe I do see why they just slapped that old horror label right on there. And then we had A Dowry of Blood. I thought it was stunning. I'm not someone who really finds much use in going back and annotating books, but A Dowry of Blood literally changed my mind about that because there were just so many exquisite lines that I just want to snatch out the book and put in my pocket. Beautiful, painful, heartbreaking, tragic, lovely. No notes. A very solid 4-star read for me, maybe even a little bit higher. But that was our week of vampire books. Thank you so much for joining me for another video. I hope you had so much fun. I'll be back next week with something else. And thank you so much for visiting Ashburg. We were so happy to have had you, and we hope to see you again very soon. Bye!